From the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. This is North by Northwest on the Supercast. And welcome back to the Supercast, everybody. I am the Superfosh, the man who put the super in Supercast, and I'm joined, as always, by my good buddy and co-host,
Steve Z, the man who put the Z in Supercast. And I hope you guys are all doing well, because I am, and I'm pretty sure Superfosh is feeling super, because we're about to talk about a film by one of the best directors in history of mankind itself, Alfred Hitchcock.
If you're new to the program, which, if you are, welcome. Steve and I are pretty good fans of Mr. Hitchcock. We've made no bones about it at all. And this was a movie, even as a fan of Hitchcock, I had never seen up until 2 weeks ago. And was really pleasantly surprised of how good this movie is. I don't know why I'm surprised, because Hitchcock's the master. But I really did dig this movie, and I really am glad to talk about it, and really excited to get into it, man. How about you?
Yeah, I had an interesting experience with this film the first time. I actually watched it in a film class in college at JSU. I was taking an Alfred Hitchcock class, and it was one of the later ones that we watched in there, so I was a little, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's Hitchcock burnout, because I loved every movie we watched in there, but it's just one of those deals where if you've been your mind has been blown so many times in a week, you can only be blown so much. So when I watched this one, I was just kind of like, yeah, that was nice, but nothing to write home about. And I have greater appreciation for it. This viewing in particular, I had a lot of fun with it. As far as where it sits on my Hitchcock pedestal, that's debatable. We'll talk about that maybe later. But great film. I'm excited to talk about it.
As am I, man. Before we get into it, as I said, if you're new to the program, welcome. We love to have new listeners and new friends, as we call it, because we're all friends here. And if you'd like to listen to more of our show, we do post all of our episodes on Spotify. Just go to Spotify and search Supercast with a Z. And all our episodes are on there. We do share them on our social media feeds, which we have a Twitter @Supercast, and we have a Facebook group, just Supercast. So go on there, follow us, like us, do all that kind of stuff, and join us. Because like I said, we are still growing this thing and having a ball doing so. So we'd love for you guys to join us on Twitter, on Facebook. And we do have a YouTube channel. It's not necessarily active as of yet. We're still working on it, but if you want to search for that, go ahead. And I'm sure we'll have some content on there at some point soon. And but yeah, join us on there. And if you want to catch up with the older episodes, all our episodes are on Spotify. So enjoy. And again, welcome. As we said, we're talking about North by Northwest. And you mentioned that you listened or watched this movie in a class. I had never seen this movie from start to finish until 2 weeks ago. I had seen the plane scene, and I knew this movie, and I knew Hitchcock had made it, but I had never sat down to watch it. And it's really interesting because it's got sort of a spy thriller thing going on with it. Talk about a little bit about the background of this film, if you can, man.
So it comes at an interesting point of Hitchcock's career. So he's pretty much the master at this point.
Right.
This is actually not the first time he's even done this sort of plot. This is like a plot he's known for. The mistaken identity, ordinary guy gets thrown into extraordinary circumstances. It's just kind of like a token Hitchcock film. But what makes this one different is he brings it to the 10th level.
Yeah.
So right before this, in fact, while he was this movie was being written, he was working on Vertigo, and Vertigo really let him down. Now it's revered as a classic. It's like some people it's their favorite movie ever. In fact, last time they did like the AFI rankings, it rose like 40 points in 10 years. So it's definitely got more appreciation now. But at the time, it was a bomb. and that devastated him. So he wanted to make a fun adventure film. So they went with North by Northwest, and a lot of people say he cleans his palate in this one, and that's why he goes to Psycho next. So it comes at a neat place of his filmography, and to me, I was really fascinated at how this film got written. Do you want to hear that story?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of these ideas he's been like carrying them around in his head for years. In fact, the ending of the film started as sort of a joke. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make a movie called The Man in Lincoln's Nose, and Cary Grant's gonna come crawling out of Lincoln's nose at the end of the film." So that's the way this kind of started out, and he had various other action sequences. So he gets with this writer, and they were actually originally working. His name's Bernard Lerman, and originally they were working on another script together, and they just kind of had writer's block. They were just like, "Yeah, I don't know about this." It was supposed to be like a very deep sort of expose into like sort of like subconscious and obsession and all that. And then the Lerman guy is just like, "What other ideas do you have?" And he's like, "Well, I got this idea about about Lincoln's nose and all this random stuff." And then the Lerman guy's like, "Well, I want to make the ultimate Hitchcock film," because he knew that Hitchcock was into like this mistaken identity stuff. So he's like, "Let's just do that."
Right.
So they basically had a bunch of set pieces, but the writer didn't know how any of it was going to fit together. So he actually took the journey that Thornhill goes on in this film.
Wow.
He goes out and he interviews a judge, and he's like, "So what's it like when somebody gets arrested for drunk driving?" And they kind of walked him through it, and it's like, "Okay, so this is what they would do. These are some stories we've heard." And then he got on the train to Chicago, rode it through there, and he's like, "Okay, so I know where Roger's going to meet up with this girl now. They're going to meet up in this restaurant car." And he just kind of wrote it and that's why if you watch this film, it's very disjointed.
It is.
It's like most films have like 3 acts to them. This one is not really a 3-act film. It's just kind of like a bunch of episodes in this guy's life, and it does climax into something, but it's just very herky-jerky. You really don't know where the film's taking you, and that's mainly because the writer didn't even know when he sat down to write it.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because I had commented, me and my wife watched it together, and I was like, "Man, this is not like any of his other films." I mean, it's just, you get thrown into the situation almost from the time the movie starts, and there's no answer, there's no real, just like Cary Grant's character, there's no really explanation of what's going on for the longest time, and it's like, what the heck? And then even when you kind of get the explanation, you're like, but that doesn't really explain anything. And you go throughout this film, and all these things happen to this guy, and then boom, the movie ends after like almost. Well, we'll get to the ending after almost death, I guess. And boom, it's over, and you're like, okay, that was abrupt, but still a very enjoyable film. I really like this film for a lot of reasons. Obviously, number one is Cary Grant. If you guys don't know, I'm a huge Cary Grant fan. Huge. And really loved, I think he was one of the best parts of this film.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the device that we see this film through, and I think because the plot is so crazy, I mean, this is just a advertising man that gets mistaken for a spy and ends up on the run from Russian spies, but also from the law. So he doesn't really know who to trust, and we're just as clueless as him, and I like that.
Right.
You were saying that aspect. The audience is in the dark until the end. Yeah. And I think if you don't have a good director like Hitchcock, and you don't have a great actor like Cary Grant, then this movie does not work.
No.
Because we can just go for the ride with him. He's so charming, so witty. Yeah. The guy could just sit there and read the phone book, and it'd be so just like, I'm enthralled by what he's saying.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree more, sir.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of my favorite actors. Great. He can do it all. He's known mainly for his comedy and just lighter films, but he can definitely pull out the serious mark when he needs to. And I think that's what makes this film work, is he can swap back and forth between my life's in danger and I'm going to joke now because my life's in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, as we mentioned, Cary Grant is the star of this film and definitely carries this film from start to finish, and it's just really good. But we also have Eva Marie Saint, who is Eve Kendall. And talk about Eva Marie Saint and what's your impressions of her performance as the leading lady of this picture?
I think she's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think she's a pretty risque character for this time period. Just because, yeah, we've seen femme fatales in like the noir films and stuff. And I think she's a play on that.
Mm-hmm,
but
definitely.
I don't think she's totally that, because especially when you learn her backstory and all that.
I love that they don't explain everything with her. Like you're kind of clueless about her the entire film, and I don't know if you had this situation, but like I didn't know if I should trust her. Like I didn't know if she was going to turn on Cary Grant's character or not, or if she was being forced to. You don't really get that explanation until the very end of the film, and then again it's sort of like a little fuzzy. But then of course they end up together. Spoiler alert, by the way, you guys. I don't think we even need to say this, but we are probably going to spoil the entire film. It is over 50 years old, 60 years old. So
yeah, it's 1959. So unless this came out when my parents were born.
Exactly.
So it's been out a while.
So yeah, we are going to spoil the heck out of this film. But go watch it. If you haven't never seen it and you don't want to get spoiled, turn this off right now. Go watch it because it is worth definitely watching. But let's get back to it. I think she played a really good, I don't know what the term is, where you just can't figure her out. You can't figure out if she's good or bad until really the very end of the film. What about you?
Yeah, I think she's very elusive.
Yeah.
And she seems all over the place. And once again, I think this goes to the actor.
Yep.
I think her charm really comes through, and definitely her sex appeal. I think that's her big selling point. That's why I was saying she was kind of a risque character at the time. She's definitely pushing the envelope because just her backstory. She's just like, I'm this person traveling by train because I like trains, and also so I can hook up with people. And just so happens I want to hook up with you, Roger. So I just don't know many movies that the woman's this forward at this time, in like film history. Yeah. And she's definitely a strong female character. She knows what she wants, but I guess she does have one weak spot, and that's she doesn't really like to trust people too much, and that I guess that's why we at the audience don't trust her, because she kind of sends Roger down a few rabbit holes and nearly gets him killed a few times. And but I really like their chemistry together.
Yeah, I have to admit, as a fan of film noir, my suspicion came up when she started, because she did almost feel like a femme fatale kind of thing. Like, yeah, she was nice and everything, but like you said, she was very forward to him, and you just don't see that a lot of times unless there's some sort of femme fatale or trickster or deceiver of some sort. And I was really hoping that she wasn't. I remember thinking throughout the film, I really hope she's not a bad guy, because I really like her. I really like the actress. I thought she did a really good job. And I really like the character. And I was like, man, if the character turns right here at the end, or, whatever, it's just, I'll expect it and I'll be like, okay, whatever. But I'll be a little bit disappointed. But I'm glad I wasn't.
I think it is great that she does reveal to be that she is a double agent of sorts, and I think that's awesome. But I love their scenes together. Oftentimes in films like this, it seems like the romance is just kind of thrown together. So it's like, yeah, they got to hook up at the end, but I think that I can feel that he actually cares for her, that he fell for her. That mainly because the scene, the auction house, whenever he finds out that she's betrayed him, his rage is real. And it's kind of where he breaks character, because he's not being charming in that moment. He's not trying to be funny. He's giving it to her. And you got to know that because she can't really reveal the truth at that point, it's got to be killing her too. So I love that scene. For other things, we'll come back to that scene later. But I love that they do end up together, and that she is not the evil person that we kind of thought she was at one point in the film.
So we have James Mason as Van Dan, Martin Landau as Leonard, and Leo G. Carroll as the Professor. Talk about those characters and what's your impressions of the characters? What's your thoughts on those performances?
Okay, so I guess we'll start with Mason just because he's supposed to be the big villain.
Yeah.
So I like his line delivery. I can tell he's a good actor.
Yep.
But as far as like his shadow on the film, he's kind of vanilla. He's not really in it very much. I don't feel that like he's that menacing. And I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for with him, but he's just definitely not the best villain. And meanwhile, Martin though, I like him a lot. Martin Landau as Leonard. He's great. I think every scene he's in, he's got that like don't mess with this guy sort of feel to him. Especially like when he's first introduced in that library, and he comes in and he proceeds. You think he's going to torture Thornhill, but instead he just gets him really, really drunk. And that's not what I was expecting. It's kind of like, what kind of spies are these? They're like, this is how we kill people. We get them really drunk so they'll die and drive off the road. But I like Leonard a lot, and I don't know if you caught up on this. A lot of Hitchcock films have some gay undertones to them. Yeah. Did you get that between Van Dan and Leonard a little bit?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I did, but I didn't think that was the intention. So I thought I'm just misreading this for some reason. But that's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's once again he's a very, I guess, a groundbreaking director.
But I'll tell you what it reminded me of, and I heard this the other day, and I guess because it's kind of modeled after James Bond. I heard the other day, remember those two guys in Diamonds Are Forever?
Oh yeah.
Remember those two bad guys?
Yeah, they're definitely.
But I never caught on to that until somebody mentioned that. I never got that.
They were like holding hands, and
I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how I missed that at all. But so I didn't know about these guys here in this film. Wasn't quite sure.
I just thought that because like Leonard seems very jealous that Van Dan's leaving him behind. He's just like, you're taking her and not me. And I just know. I just get that vibe from them. And like I said, that's often a thing you see in Hitchcock films. Some of them are very blatant with it, and some of them they kind of just like keep it, especially in the American cuts, they don't put it in there. But we got that, and I'm glad that you mentioned Bond here because these guys are sort of Bondish when it comes to like villains. And I guess that's why you shouldn't really compare them to Bond villains because if so, one of them would have like a hook for a hand or something, and one of them have an eye patch or something. So we don't get that. And as far as the Professor goes, he's just he's there. I'm glad that they have him there to just kind of be that other part of the story that we really don't know much about. That stuff with the CIA, and it kind of shows you that they really don't care about Thornhill too much. And until the end, they're like, okay, I guess we can use this guy. He could like help us get our agent out. So
I also love the character of Thornhill's mother in this. I think she's hilarious because she's kind of clueless about everything, and Thornhill's trying to explain it, but he doesn't know. So I love that scene with her coming into the house. I thought that was a pretty funny scene.
Oh yeah, I love that whole sequence where he's taking the people around trying to show them, see, I was here. This is a bunch of liquor here. And she's just kind of just scoffing at all of it. Come on, Roger, just fess up. Why are we even wasting all this time? Just pay the ticket.
I'm like, wow, you just want to throw your son in jail?
And then the best is when they're in the elevator and there's supposed to be some real tension here because these people come in for him, and she just interrupts and says, "Are you gentlemen really trying to kill my son?" And everybody just starts laughing. Wow. They're like, "What the heck?"
So yeah, she's great. I love her. She's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I wish she would come back in the other two parts of the film because she's just kind of there at the beginning, but we don't get to see her again. But I really don't think she would have fit narratively. No, not really. No. Yeah. So great cast of characters, as you see with pretty much all Hitchcock films. And we've been talking about some of the big scenes so far. There's a few that I think we should probably highlight. What are some of your favorite scenes?
Well, just going through it here, I mean, you gotta start at the beginning of this film because, again, there's no real setup as far as getting to know the characters and, seeing what they're about. You just get thrown into the situation almost immediately. Like, the guy, Thornhill says he's gonna meet his mom for dinner or go to a show? I forget what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, he went to go meet some clients for some drinks, and then he was going to go hook up with her later. And at the hotel where he's getting drinks is where the whole thing just kind of...
And then all of a sudden these guys show up and they're like, come with me. And you're like, I'm not supposed to be going with you guys. I don't even know who you are. And they call him by the wrong name, and you're just immediately confused. And again, watching this film for the first time, I was really confused of what's going on and just wanted to know, okay, why are they calling him this name if he's saying he's this? What's that about? And as I said to you off air, you don't really get that explained for a good long while. I mean, you're just like the main character, and you don't see that a lot with movies where the main character is as confused as the audience,
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting intro into the whole situation.
Yeah, I like the beginning of the film a lot. I like the credits and the Bernard Herrmann music playing.
Yeah.
I like it that Hitchcock gets his cameo out of the way really fast.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to make the movie just be intense from the get-go. So he wanted to get himself out of the way. But yeah, Thornhill, we learned that he's not the best guy, but he's also very charming. Because he steals that taxi cab from that guy, and he's just like, that guy feels like he's awesome now. He's having a great day. And then I guess you didn't catch why they did think he was that guy.
I guess
because they were paging that guy, and as it happened to be the time when Thornhill was raising his hands to order some drinks, so they thought that they were paging him. So
I must have missed that. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, you have to pay attention in Hitchcock movies.
No kidding.
Otherwise you will miss something very critical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that whole intro thing because it kind of just throws you in there, like you were saying. And I think that the next part, the first real danger, whenever they do abduct him and take him and get him drunk. So this scene has a lot of stuff I like, but then at the same time, it does look kind of hokey now. And I'm not usually a person that critiques the film for that. But the rear projection's really bad.
Yes.
But to me, the best part of this scene is after he gets arrested.
Yeah.
And whenever they're bringing him, interviewing him, asking if he needs the breathalyzer test or something, he's like, I am totally wasted, Doc. And it's just, it's great. He plays a very good drunk.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, so I love that whole part. I mean, that's one thing that can't be understated.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a kind of film that's really hard to make, where basically the action, the suspense is just on equal footing with the comedy.
And to pull that off is a brilliant move. And, you're almost surprised that Hitchcock can do that because he's just so good with suspense. Yeah, he seems to understand comedic timing pretty well as well. And I agree with you. I think to put those together, it makes for an interesting film for sure.
Yeah. Another scene that really sticks out to me is when he goes to the United Nations. This is some of my favorite camera shots in the whole film because at this point he's insanely frantic. He's on the run from these spies. He's just trying to figure out this mystery. So he goes to figure out who this Townsend guy is and say, hey, some people think I was at your house last night, but it wasn't your house. There's some people living there. And then Townsend gets killed right in front of him. And now he's wanted for murder. And I just love that shot of him running out of the United Nations. And it's like a big aerial shot looking down on him. And I love it when Hitchcock pulls those out. There's some great evidence of that in other films.
Of course, I love the, we mentioned this earlier, but when he first meets up with Eve, and again, I don't know how you felt initially, but I was very skeptical of Eve upon the intro of her character within the film. I mean, you're already confused about why, what's going on with Thornhill, and then this lady comes in, and you're like, is she gonna kill him? Is she gonna save him? You know, what's her deal? And I thought her intro was really good though.
Mm-hmm. And she's, like I said, she's a modern woman of this not so modern times. She's knows what she wants, and I guess in retrospect, when she found out her story, you're like, oh, she was being forthcoming because she wanted to mess with him. She wanted to get him caught and kind of use him. So I don't know. I guess it just adds more layers to the film, and definitely adds more layers to her performance. But I think the other big scene I like with them is, I don't know if you remember this, is after supposedly he's dead, and she shot him with a fake gun, and they meet up in the forest, and they have their little moment together where they just, all cards are on the table. She's honest with him for the first time in the whole film, and I don't know why, I just love that scene so much.
Because I think it kind of explains everything. I think she kind of gets her time to explain everything. I think it's a good thing for the audience to kind of explain where she's coming from. And there's no tricks. There's no, you know, elaborate thing. It's just, hey, this is the truth. This is it, you know. And you know, like you mentioned earlier, there's definitely almost a forced romance with this, but it doesn't bother me as much as it might in other films. Like, I don't feel it's as natural as other films with the romance part, but it doesn't bother me as bad. How about you?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, especially this scene.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I really buy what they're feeling at that moment.
At that moment, yeah.
They want to be together, but because of circumstances, they can't. And that's why he eventually does what he does. Because he could leave right this moment and say, I'm done with this game. Forget this. But instead, he risked his life to go save her. Which I think is awesome, and it makes a very rewarding film. I mean, I guess that's why they wrote it that way.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is a really, really entertaining film. A really good, you know, would you call it a spy thriller? I don't know if it's necessarily a spy thriller, but
it is, and it's got a few standout scenes that.
Oh, sure.
Action definitely is there. Can't forget the classic scene that I think has been parodied so many times that before I even sat down and watched this movie, I knew it, and that's the cornfield scene. And this one, I just love the build up to it. It's just out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just silence for a long time. You just hear this engine roaring of this plane. Some random dude drives up and gets dropped off. And you're like, oh, is this guy gonna shoot him or something? And
right.
It's the guy just wants to get on another bus, and it's just kind of crazy, that whole scene. And he manages to survive, and it even ends with a big explosion.
Yeah, that's an interesting scene because, like you said, expecting the plane scene just because I'd seen that in other things. And I almost wish I hadn't at this point, because I think that would make the scene even better. Because there is this feeling of high anxiety. I mean, just you're really anxious in the scene because it's so quiet. It's so out in the middle of nowhere. And you just... I mean, I know it's coming, but I kind of wish I didn't, because I think it would even be more anticipation because of where he is and what's going on. Because, like I said, it's just so quiet, and you just really aren't sure what's going to happen to him at that point.
And other big scene, I mean, obviously the big finale and the whole Mount Rushmore thing is something a lot of people like to bring up. But for me, my favorite, like, tense scene is that auction scene.
Me too.
Yeah, because he shows up and he's there, and he runs into Van Damme. He's like, crap, you're here. And he's surrounded by all these henchmen, and he has to find a way out of it the best he can. So he decides, I'm just going to be a total ass and just act like a fool and just bet on this random art and just ruin everybody's day. And try to get arrested and kicked out this thing.
See, to me, that's classic Cary Grant right there. That is... To me, that's what Cary Grant does best, is he can act crazy and he can act, foolish, but he really is smart. He's really intelligent, And I think the character is probably written in the same way, where, he can act stupid, he can act goofy, but he really knows what he's doing. He's really, unless he's drunk like he is earlier in the film, he's pretty up on everything, and he's pretty smart, and he can assess the situation correctly. And I think that's what he does in this scene that makes it so good.
Yeah, real tension in that scene, and it just even with the jokes that are flying like crazy, you still feel it.
Yeah, sure.
But I guess let's talk about the finale. What are your thoughts on it?
I have mixed feelings about the finale. I'm gonna just be completely honest. It's not the best finale. I don't think it's the best finale of any of Hitchcock's films. But I think I get it. I mean, I don't know how... I couldn't come up with anything off the top of my head better than what happens at this end. So I guess it works for this story specifically. What about you, man? How do you view this ending, this finale?
So I think this is where, in 2022 eyes, we can appreciate this really. Because this movie was filmed, I don't know if you caught it at the beginning of the credits, filmed in VistaVision, which was a big thing. So this film was supposed to look really bright and like huge on the screen. So I think back in the day, 1959 when this came out, this was thrilling. They were hanging on the edge of the Mount Rushmore.
True.
But now we've seen this done so many times in so many different ways, it just doesn't play the same way. So that's why for us, we like the more... In the other scenes, we like a little bit more. We can appreciate the film for that. But back in the day, this was like edge of your seat stuff.
True that. That makes sense.
Especially at the end when, like you said, it just abruptly happens.
Yeah.
And also ends with a double entendre to get on top of things of... Yeah, I don't know if you call it that. That's another Hitchcock thing. He likes to make sex jokes a lot. So we get that. Final thoughts on it. I think we should get into it. I don't think we can say enough about the great direction by Hitchcock. He's the master of suspense, like we already said. And he's just... I don't think many people can make movies like this anymore. Or I don't think people can work like Hitchcock.
No, I agree with you. And his mixture of comedy, this seemed to have more comedy in the film than maybe some of his others. And that could be because Cary Grant's in the film. And as we said, he's really good at comedic roles. But this definitely, as you mentioned earlier in the film, does balance really well, I would even say, comedy and suspense. So you're getting the suspense of the story, and then you may have, a comedic line from Cary Grant or his mother or, whoever. And I think anybody else might have flubbed this up, and it might not have worked as good without Hitchcock. But I think he nails it. I think he nails it 100%. As I said, this is not my favorite Hitchcock film, but I do really love it. And I think if you are a fan of Hitchcock and you haven't seen this, you should definitely see this film. It's a must-see. I think it does what it sets out to do really well and has a good story. I mean, and that's any good movie, right? It has to have a good story. And despite the ending, the abrupt ending, I still think this is a very solid film.
Yeah, I agree with you on pretty much everything you said except for one thing.
Okay.
I don't think it has a good story. I think
it's
all over the place. And I think that's what makes Hitchcock's direction so great is even with a bad story, even with what he calls a MacGuffin, this like thing that you're trying to get. I mean, do you even know what they were trying to get in this film? What the MacGuffin was?
No.
It's that microfilm they mentioned toward the end of the movie. And you don't even think about that after you stop watching the movie because it doesn't matter.
Wow.
And so I'm like, it's a great movie in that regard. But as far as story goes, no. I love the characters. I love the sandbox of it all. So I think it's very much him at his best. And like I was saying, I don't think anybody could do stuff like this anymore just because he's come out with a banger every year. Like if you look at his like 55 to 60, he comes out with Rear Window. He comes out with The Man Who Knew Too Much, Vertigo, this film, and then Psycho, all right there. And it's just nuts. And I mean, basically, he's working on this and Vertigo at the same time, which is, I don't even see how you can do that. And I guess
No
our
way.
next one, we're talking about another director that tried that too.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. But I guess the final thing I want to bring up is the Bond connection. So do you believe what they said that, I think it was Guillermo del Toro said, Cary Grant's the best James Bond that never played James Bond. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I wouldn't have thought of it had not somebody mentioned that the other day, because I heard that. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he would have been better than Sean Connery, in my opinion. That's probably my opinion and my opinion only, but I think he would have been a great James Bond. And this does have quite the James Bond appeal. And, you get the car, you get, car chases and all that good stuff. Of course, the plane thing seemed very Bond, and girl and all that. Yeah, definitely. I think this is a very good Bond film that's not a Bond film. And kind of sad that we didn't see him as proper Bond, because I think he would have done a pretty good job, Cary Grant. I mean...
Yeah, I think it was in the works. Because, I think Casino Royale was bought by some, television studio way back in the early 50s.
Right.
And Ian Fleming wanted Hitchcock to be the director. He wanted Cary Grant to be the actor. And it just never worked out. So eventually, get Guy Hamilton and Sean Connery. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah.
And you definitely see in those early Bond films this film kind of pushing it a little bit. Especially Cornfield and the helicopter scene from Russia with Love are basically just rip-off.
Yeah, that's kind of a sad thing to know that we were that close to getting a Cary Grant Bond film, because again, I think he would have been amazing. I think he would have probably a different career than what he ended up having, because Bond came in his life. And who knows what would have happened to Sean Connery if he didn't have Bond. So you never know. I'm a bit sad about that, but like I said, I'm a huge Cary Grant fan. And if you like this film, there's a film that I'm so close to, it's not even funny, called Arsenic and Old Lace. And it stars a little bit younger Cary Grant. And to go from... He plays a play critic. And he's just, straight-laced and very serious. And he finds out something about his aunts do something. And he just goes nuts. It's not he goes slowly into madness, basically, what happens. You know the story, Steve, but if you like By NothCaZt and you want to just see Cary Grant going crazy slowly, watch that film, because it's so funny. It is so funny. It's one of the funniest films I've ever seen or heard about, and it's called Arsenic and Old Lace. It is a play. I was in the play. It's a fantastic film in its own right. So that's my suggestion off this film.
Yeah, I love the man's filmography, especially the screwball comedies like Arsenic Old Lace fits in that category. And he's just a great actor. Hitchcock, we've already mentioned, he's awesome. We'll probably come back to him in the near future. But next time, changing gears. We're changing decades now. We're going back to school in 1985 for the John Hughes classic Breakfast Club.
Can't wait to talk about that classic film. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Supercast. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. And we will see you guys next time on the Supercast.